Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. Here with your hosts, Ivan, Abram, and returning after a little bit of a hiatus, Saz. Saz, welcome back. How are you doing?
Good. I'm over mono now, so it's nice to
Yeah,
live
you
life
had
again.
summer class?
Did I freeze on your guys' end?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay, yeah, you froze right as I started talking. That's phenomenal. So I just got over mono, so it's good to live life again.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, well, we're glad you're feeling better. I know, Abram, you're feeling a little bit under the weather, but thanks for joining us as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So regarding weather, you could say that this League's Cup campaign, as short-lived as it was a bit of a gloomy forecast for what could happen in a playoff scenario, because that's essentially what these games felt like. They were playoff games against strong calibers of oppositions. This was a tough group to be in. It was still a group that most people would have expected San Jose Earthquakes to get out of one way or another, but not only has that not happened, they did not even score a goal in this entire, group stage. So justifiably, fans are upset. We're upset. We're not happy with this, but we have some fan questions / comments. We're going to go into them today, and we're going to let that be our guiding force to talk about the match between San Jose Earthquakes versus Tigres this past Sunday night. And then anything else that's left over, Abram, Saz, and I will provide some additional commentary. So thank you once again for submitting your fan questions, whether it be on Discord or Twitter or any other platform you can reach us at. And we're going to start with SJ Smash, which, contrary to popular belief, I do not believe is a Smash Bros account, is just a play on San Jose Clash. But anyway, a disappointment to say the least. In my opinion, we were better, and now we have about 3 weeks off of match action. How can we come to action better and push into a home playoff match? I'm going to hand that off to Abram.
I think that there's a lot of things that they need to do. I think that getting the attack to click together is a huge thing. I think the most obvious right now. Espinosa touched on the fact that they need to move the ball from side to side quicker, up and down quicker. I think getting Ayo Akinola acquainted with this team, coming over from Toronto, and he looked kind of lost out there against Tigres in his few minutes that he got. So I think if we can get him to get integrated with the team and start firing on all cylinders, then we're gonna have a much stronger offense after this break.
Yeah. At the press conference, Luchi Gonzalez mentioned that he only practiced 3 times with the team prior to that game. So the most important thing, especially knowing going into that match, there was like a 95% chance Quakes were likely crashing out, that Akinola had to get some minutes. So I think 20 is probably a good amount. You're not forcing him to do too much. It's just an opportunity to get some match fitness and get to know what Lucci is expecting from his system. And he's going to get some more opportunities to get prepared between now and the Whitecaps game on August 20th. So that's the biggest thing. Our next fan question comes from Mike B. Pastor. How do you see the center back situation playing out at the end of this season and next? Do you think Rodriguez gets a full offer, Mensah to leave, and what happens if Nathan comes back? So, Saz, what are your thoughts on the center back situation?
Well, we just extended Rodriguez's contract like a few hours, maybe like an hour prior to this recording.
Right. So that's great news.
It's hard to see Tanner go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the boys, local. Well, not local, but one of the boys.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mensah sort of seems to be in the doghouse, and I don't know if there's tension going on behind the scenes. It's not like he necessarily had like a horrible game and just stopped playing. It just really fell out of favor. I know there was some stuff behind it. So unless Mensah really, really is offered something great, I could see him coming back. But the problem is we don't have the money for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just prefer Rodriguez. So someone's going to have to come down to money, whether it's Miro, Mensah, someone else. But I think I could see Mensah moving on. I see Miro, or sorry, not Miro. I see Tanner, Rodriguez, staying, and then maybe looking for another option after that.
Yeah, so lately the San Jose Earthquakes have been playing a lot back three, but oftentimes rather than have Mensah as that clear third option and that center back starting alongside Rodriguez and Beeson, it's been Trauco playing as a center back, which allows either Paul Marie to fill in that additional fullback role opposite of Carlos Agapo, or sometimes even Christian Espinoza plays a little bit deeper than he usually does. So they're going through great lengths not to play Jonathan Mensah. So if we're looking at the roster as it is, and this kind of goes into another theme that has been talked about a lot this last week, the Quakes have to move someone to make another move in return. Mensah seems like the biggest candidate based on, you know, his involvement with the team, the salary that he's on, and what kind of offer Quakes could potentially get or make a trade or something. Abram, your thoughts on the center back situation?
Yeah, I think that Saz really did a good job of covering it. I agree with his evaluation. I think that he didn't mention Nathan, and that's a really interesting thing. We have who was a player who was like our best center back for a while. We're not even thinking about him anymore, and obviously he's injured, so we're not considering him for this season. But in the future, for next season at the beginning, we have, I don't know if Mensah's on a deal that'll bring him into the next year, but if he is, then we have Mensah, Rodriguez, Nathan, all three of them, and then we play with a back two center back pairing. And then Beeson's also in there, and he's getting a lot of minutes. Lucci obviously really likes Beeson. So it's complicated. It's not easy. I think that if we can offload Nathan or and offload Mensah, I think that frees up a lot of space. And then it leaves us in a similar situation that we're in right now, where we're only really playing Rodriguez and Beeson, and then we have Muni on the bench after that, Agrin coming back from loan. So there's a lot to think about, and I'm glad that I'm not the one who has to figure that out.
So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. One thing I want to mention as well, I think something that's difficult that we haven't mentioned with Nathan coming back is I think Nathan and Rodriguez are very similar in the style of play. They're both really big, really fast, a little reckless, and they both like to go forward. So that's what's been nice about having Mensah, and that's why I liked at the beginning of the year. It was very much like a calming balance and someone in the back line to kind of bring it all together. Now, given Tanner's been doing a good job of that, but Tanner and Mensah have their own strengths, but both of them play their own separate role, and then that kind of been allowing Rodriguez to go forward, make his forward runs, be a little bit more reckless. That'd be interesting to see if Rodriguez and Nathan were our two options, because then it's kind of both guys might want to get forward. Maybe they'll take turns going forward. Both might be a little reckless, and then we both have both our center backs with yellows 32 minutes in. So I think that's another thing they have to consider is, hey, can we try and get depth with similar guys, or, oh, shoot, we have two of the same center back now.
Yep, so throughout this whole season, we've been dealing with paper-thin depth, where it's like we miss one person due to injury, suspension. Yeah, we have another player that could fill in, but sometimes there's a bit of a drop-off depending on what position you're talking about, and then who's after that person. So that's been a big juggling act that we've been trying to figure out. Gonzap wanted to know a little bit about the salary cap and making transfers, and likewise from Dark Thunder, he wanted to talk about areas of improvement and potential signings to bring in during the window. And like I usually preface these questions when we talk about transfers, San Jose Earthquakes tend to be very tight-lipped in regards to like transfer rumors with specific players, and I think that's for a lot of MLS clubs as well. It's not like, oh, Manchester United, linked to Hoyland, linked to Onana, linked to 30 other players. So out of that pool of 30 players, we can try to speculate, okay, let's get this person and not that person. So it's definitely a different situation. But are there any players that come to mind that if the Quakes were to bring in someone, like you have a dream signing, either Saz or Abram?
Saz, I'll let you go first.
I was going to say, I don't have a name, but I would want a winger that is more like, I'm going to go in and shoot mentality versus a winger who's just really fast and can cross the ball in.
So kind of like an inverted winger. A player that comes to mind would be Minnesota's Hlungwane. He's been doing very well alongside Emi Reynoso, the South African winger, and he's been scoring a lot of goals in the Leagues Cup, especially. Obviously, that would be a no-go for Minnesota United to part ways with him, but a player like him would certainly be helpful. Abram?
Something we've seen from Lucci, though.
Yeah.
Or Leach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like thinking about what kind of space we have in our roster. I think that if we don't want I want a left winger. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. I do want a left winger. I think that that would bring the most value. I think if we're not trying to get another DP left winger, then I would like someone like Corey Baird. Someone who's like every time we play him, he's always looking to go forward. He's very positive and he's very tenacious. Like he tries really hard to make something happen, and I think someone with his pace, he doesn't have like insane pace like Kate Cowell, but he can get on the ball. He makes those runs. He's a good system player. I think that he would bring a lot of consistency to the left side, and that's our main thing, right? We don't have enough consistency, and I think Corey Baird would. He can cross, he can run in and shoot, he can finish. He's like a pretty good left winger, and I think that he would. If we're not looking for a DP, I think he could bring a lot of value to the team.
Corey Baird is someone that, while at Real Salt Lake and Houston Dynamo, he's been quietly productive, quietly consistent, and he's another player that I think that would probably fit the mold of if we are going to make another move. San Jose Earthquakes are probably looking for someone to bolster their bench options rather than to dethrone right away one of the starter players. However, if there's anyone in the front three that could potentially be challenged for that starting spot, once again, it's Kate Cowell. And I know it's like Groundhog Day, and we have this conversation at least once a year. It's like, okay, Kate Cowell, he could be a great super sub. He's a good starter. What is his best role? But I do feel like he's been starting to struggle a little bit recently with his decision making. And again, I know that's one of the things that frustrates people about Kate Cowell. Even though he's only 19, the fact that he's been a pro for a few years now, people are expecting him to improve on some of these things that we've cited as areas of growth a year ago, 2 years ago. And sometimes it's just resurfaces in spades for Kate Cowell. But yeah, a left wing would probably be the primary way to go. And that's what I was kind of thinking that Akinola could potentially be. But then, I remembered that he still mostly played for Toronto as a striker. And the times that he didn't, it's because Toronto has dealt with so many injuries and suspensions. They had to move whoever they had available around, Akinola included. But we are happy to have Akinola, and it's another area that we did need more depth in. We don't really have an out-and-out replacement for Jeremy Abobasi as an out-and-out striker, as a hold-up player. So Akinola could potentially be that person once again. So Omar wanted to know, and this is one of the hosts from the Goal Sided podcast, and they have a Discord server as well. They've been fun to interact with, so definitely check out their podcast too when you're done listening to this one. What do the Quakes need to do in order to be at the level of an international tournament like the Leagues Cup? And thoughts on Kokanovic, whose performances have dropped off and his minutes diminished. So I'll tackle the first question first, and then we'll get your thoughts. So what did San Jose Earthquakes have to do in order to be able to compete at a Leagues Cup or playoff level and to consistently advance in these tournaments? That's the big mystery, because the Quakes have not been in that position to do so for a long, long time. I think the last time they've advanced past the first round of the playoffs was 2010. So as great as 2012 was, we still lost in the first round to LA Galaxy. And this is something that Lucha Gonzalez talked about in the press conference as well. It's like, obviously, we expect to win, we expect to compete and do well in these tournaments, but we also have to take a step back and realize we have to play Portland away, and the Quakes don't usually do well in Providence Park, and our home game is against Tigres, the literal defending champs from Liga MX. With all due respect to Necaxa or Juarez or whoever, Tigres is literally the toughest opponent that we could have faced in this tournament. And also, with all due respect to the Apertura champion Pachuca and the defending MLS champions LAFC, who received first round byes. So ultimately, there is a bit of luck of the draw. Granted, Quakes, they didn't do well last season, so they didn't really earn the right to get a higher seed for this League's Cup. So it was always likely we're going to get a tough draw anyway. And we do have to keep in mind that there are teams better than us, and sometimes we get the crap end of the stick. But we have to start beating the teams that we face against, no matter what the circumstances are. So the biggest answer I could give is that the Quakes need to make a big swing the next opportunity they get. It's not going to happen this season. Who knows when it'll ever happen, but that would be the quickest route. Otherwise, you're in this Moneyball mindset and you're trying to develop these players the best you can. And to the Quakes' credit, they are getting more from Christian Espinoza than maybe some people expected. You know, extending him to 2025, building the team around him, that's probably not something that people expected for Christian Espinoza. Probably expecting him to be a nice option, a complementary piece, and one of our best players, but potentially the best player, probably not. But yeah, so we'll have Abram tackle that, and then Saz, you can provide us your thoughts on Kikanovic to answer the second part of that question. So Abram, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's really hard to say. With a different draw, with different teams, in our group, would we have gone further? I think it's very possible. I think that we played better than Portland. I think that we played much better than most people would have expected against Tigres. And the thing is, unlike the Open Cup, Lucci put out a really strong team for both these games. Um, I I think Lucci's probably asking the same question. What do we have to do? Like, what more do we have to do? I think I think that we deserve to go out ultimately. And what was going to happen happened because of the luck of the draw, like you said. Um, so it's really unfortunate, but in the future, I guess we. I mean, I hate being the one to say like just go out and try really hard. But I mean, he put out our best 11. We saw Jameer Montero. We saw Jack Scan got hurt. It's weird to say Montero is the second fiddle to Scan right now, but you know what I'm saying. Like we put out a strong lineup, we played well, and we
And it could have
lost.
been worse too
Uh,
because both Abobasi and Espinoza left the Portland games with injuries. One was able to soldier on, the other had to be subbed off. But thankfully, they were both able to play in this game, so it wasn't anything too serious. And I guess another thing I could add to that is we need to have a plan B. And I think right now, plan A is good enough to win games, but when plan A is figured out, we don't have a plan B. And this is despite Lucci experimenting with different formations. And we have seen some slight formational shifts within games, such as a 3-4-3 turning into a 3-5-2 and vice versa. But another enigma has been Benji Kikanovic. Is there anything noticeable that we can see that's causing him to be a less effective version of himself as we're used to seeing? Saz, what are you seeing when it comes to Benji Kikanovic?
I mean, I just feel for him because I feel during Almeida's time, Almeida didn't really like giving some of the younger guys a lot of minutes till they had X amount of caps. I thought Benji was the answer most games. I thought he would come in and like either score a goal. I remember it was one end of the season. I swear he scored like every other game. It seemed like he would bring in explosiveness and just wasn't getting many chances or minutes. Or if Cade Cowell was out of the lineup, the second Cade was ready. Even if he was in or out of form, Cade got the spot back. Obviously, I don't know what happens in training, so that could be another thing. Maybe he's really lazy in training because he usually doesn't track back as much as Cade. So maybe that has something to do something. But I feel like he just never got chances. And then now this season, I feel like he got a lot of chances early on and was just missing like 5-yard tap-ins. And now I feel like maybe that's dwindled on his confidence. And I mean, I said it to Crystal and some of the other people I was hanging out with with Fault Line and Seismic Union the other day. I think it was when Akinola came in, or it was there were I forget which sub it was, but it really spoke out. I think it was maybe when Tommy came in. Mm-hmm. I just said like, wow, that really just speaks volumes that Benji is the bottom of the totem pole, maybe with Buddha. But I mean, even Buddha, he's like a Quakes 2 player that is now kind of getting a few minutes here and there. But yeah, you can just see Benji's at the bottom. I think maybe a bit of confidence, maybe something's happening off the field. You never know a player, so I never like to make too many speculations with that, but it's a rough one for sure.
And since you mentioned that you were with the Faultliners and stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your experience at the game Sunday? Because something cool happened, right?
Well, something cool was going to happen. I was on the siren for the game. There's always a celebrity that gets to do the siren, and then someone who takes over. And I got a phenomenal view of the game. But yeah, we didn't score, so I didn't get the siren. Then I kept every time Tigres got scored, people were heckling me to do the siren. I'm like, that's not how it works. I get a makeup game though. I'm gonna come back up for the LA game, so maybe I'll get to do it then.
That's still that's a great position that you get to be in, and it's a emblem of how dedicated you have been to the Quakes. And I know it's tough. I felt this as well when I was in college at UC Davis. I felt a little bit more disconnected from the Bay Area teams I supported, not being able to see them as often as I used to, whether it be on TV or in person. But I know your time in college has not deteriorated your connection with the San Jose Quakes, and that's a sign of that for sure. And on more positive Quakes-related topics, and you mentioned Buddha was getting some minutes at Quakes 2. Quakes 2 are on a bit of a roll, and now they don't need to win games on penalties all the time. Abram, tell us a little bit about the Quakes beating Minnesota United.
Yeah, I have the game pulled up here. I mean, I am obviously very happy with this win, but I'm also, concerned about the penalties. We keep having to go to penalties. We have a very strong team. If you watch Quakes 2 game, you know that the results of late have not been due to a lack of effort. These boys try their butts off. Thankfully, they won the last game. Roberto Hadigan is someone who I've been hyping up any chance I get. Definitely keep an eye out for Roberto Hadigan. I would love for him to get a call up to the first team. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, especially with the new update on our cap space. But regardless, great player. We had 16 shots against Minnesota, and we scored 1. And so for me, we need to get better at finishing in and around the box. Our new signing, Serrano, number 80, for those who don't know, he's a new signing. He's been good. He sets up his teammates, but I need him to have that instinct of someone like Rudy Castro and put the ball into the goal. We're obviously going to miss Rudy Castro. Best of luck to him in his new endeavor in USWNT, I believe.
Knoxville, I think.
But yeah, that's not just on the field, but his character was so much to this team, and they're really going to miss him. Not just his goals, but just the person he is off the field too.
So that's the life with the two sides. There's always a chance that a player comes and goes. We wish Rudy the best, and Quakes are finding ways to win games, even if it's not from the traditional sense. They've been playing Leagues Cup all MLS Next Pro long with the penalty rules that Leagues Cup has had as well. And it is great to see that, Quakes 2 are continuing to give these phenomenal players some great minutes, and they're taking these opportunities in spades. And I think that this also kind of goes well with this final question that we do have. So from LaFlame, Birdo51 from Discord, what do the Quakes need to do to ensure they make the playoffs? And ultimately, they put themselves in a good position to get to the playoffs, but they just have to continue to do the work. And I'm looking at the next opponent, Vancouver Whitecaps. They're not a team anyone can sleep on. That we're going to be going to Vancouver. BC Place is going to be a tough place to get a win or a result in. But if you can come out guns blazing and win that first game back from MLS, that gives you less anxiety going into the final 12 games of the season. Just getting that first win back as soon as possible is crucial to that playoff push because you don't want to concede any more ground. There's still a couple teams that have played one less game than the Quakes, so you have to continue to pick up points as much as you can. And Vancouver showed that grit against LA Galaxy to qualify for the Leagues Cup knockout stage. Favi, of course, pointed out on Twitter that both the Quakes and the Galaxy, not doing California too much justice with their Leagues Cup performance. we'll see what happens with LAFC since they got that first round bye. But it's going to be interesting. We got to see how Vancouver plays against Tigres and take some notes because that will tell us what the Quakes have to do against Vancouver as well. Granted, we don't have the same kind of personnel that Tigres do. They have a lot of quality, so we cannot mimic everything that Tigres do, but it could give us some clues for sure. Any other thoughts regarding the Leagues Cup, this game, before we go on to our next segment?
Building off that last question, my concern is less of making the playoffs because I feel like it had to be a tremendous string of losses. I mean, I could even say it's going in bad form getting a lower seed. My concern is more a burnout or just like having to throw everything at it. And then if we do get to playoffs, it's like, here's our starting lineup of our 17-year-olds we had to call up. That'd be more so my concern. Yeah. So learning to manage it. And I mean, the players look devastated after the loss for the Leagues Cup, which makes sense. You're knocked out of a tournament, especially that's probably their best chance of winning a trophy this year. And to not even be able to get an advance out of the group stage, that obviously sucks. But keeping morals high and like keeping people going, because it can be exhausting coming to work every day, putting in this trust in this process, and then just seeing like, oh well, we're still losing. So that's my concern, worrying about a burnout.
Definitely, it's going to be a tough stretch for sure. So you got to look at the positive side of things. You could debate rest or rust as much as you like, but the fact of the matter is the Quakes do have this time off, and it's up to them to use it as wisely as they can. Lucci was very focused about how he was going to do that regarding giving the players a little bit of a break, and then after that break period, okay, back to work, and we're going to hopefully try to get a leg up on the competition, especially if their next opponent, the Whitecaps, are able to win a game or two, have to play a game extra at least. Abram, any final thoughts on this Leagues Cup misadventure?
I mean, yeah. I don't really have anything to say that I haven't already said. It was a tough draw. I think we played really well in both games. I thought we were the better team of Portland, and I thought we broke down Tigres' defense way more than anyone thought we should. And I'm excited for the next one because it's been a really fun tournament to watch. You know, not just Quakes, but there's been a lot of goals everywhere.
Yep, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other teams that are still in the tournament with this next segment. I figured that we had enough frustration regarding this game in particular, but there's still 32 teams in contention in the Leagues Cup, and so I think it would be appropriate to do a little bit of a prediction game. So I have with me on my notes the 16 matchups for the Leagues Cup, and we're going to take turns. So first we'll have Abram go first, then Saz, and then myself. But for each round, we're each going to pick which team we're going to have advancing from that match. And then whichever team has the majority, that'll be the Tectonic Takes official prediction, and we'll see how well we do. We'll update on Twitter, and you'll all get to know how smart or dumb we are. So we're going to start with LAFC versus Juarez. Abram.
I'm thinking in LA, LAFC fans are gonna come out for this one. I think that LA has more quality than Juarez. I'm sorry, that's just how I see it. And you know, since it's a Liga MX game, I think that LAFC fans are going to be more enticed to come to the game. And I think that LA are very empowered by their fans when they're, you know, being loud and everything. So I don't like to say it, but I think LAFC is going to win this one.
Okay, Saz?
I'd have to agree, LAFC.
And I'm going to make it a clean sweep. I think LAFC, they got by for a reason. They're one of the top teams in MLS this season. They were the top team last season as champions. Juarez, they've done well so far, but I think LAFC are going to outmatch them. So that's going to be a unanimous pick for LAFC there. So next up, we have Leon versus Real Salt Lake. Saz, you're going to go first.
This one's a toss-up for me because I think off the bat, Leon just like screams to me that they're going to win. But, I mean, Real Salt Lake are a team to be underdogs. They're having a great season. I'm actually just pulling up their recent form right now to see how that's been going, which it's been very hot, but they did just lose to Monterey, which is one of the top teams, hot and cold. It seems like is their results. I'm sure I'm going to go Real Salt Lake. Let's just that.
Yeah, our friends over at the Royal Riot podcast will be happy that Real Salt Lake get one of our 3 votes. We'll see where the rest go. Abram.
I do enjoy chatting with our friends at the Royal Riot. I'm sorry, LD, but I think I'm gonna have this one. I think I always underestimate them, but I do think that Royal have the chance. I do think that they're a sneaky team. With also you can never really count out Chicho Arango, but I think that I think usually Leon would win this one. Like you would usually count them to win this one. I think Real definitely have the chance, but if I'm going one way or the other, I'm going with Leon.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. You have Club Leon, who won the CONCACAF Champions League, so similar to Tigres, they're coming in with a little bit of reputation and expectation. And Real Salt Lake, though, they mean business this season. They've really acquired some good, talented players. They've gotten a lot of great performances out of some of their players that maybe weren't high on people's radar to start this season. But I think that it happened to be this caliber of opponent that Real Salt Lake unfortunately had to face now. So Club Leon will edge this one. It'll be a close game, but I'm going to give Club Leon my vote, and that means Leon takes our prediction 2-1. Next up, we got Tigres against Vancouver Whitecaps. And I'll start this off. I don't have to explain too much. While I gave Vancouver Whitecaps their credit, they're a good team. Tigres are just on another level, and they're going to take some beating to get knocked out of this tournament. My vote's for Tigres. Abram.
Yeah, I mean, if Tigres can beat the Quakes, they could beat anyone. So I have the chance. I think Vancouver as well just lost Julian Gressel, who is a big deal. I think that they lost to Columbus.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, cool. I was like, did I hallucinate that?
No, I was
no.
For a second I thought you meant Gressel got injured, but then I realized he's with Columbus. So, yeah.
Yeah, he just Vancouver player.
That's true.
So obviously he's a big player for any team. So yeah, Tigres probably has
it.
Agreed.
Tigres. Okay, clean sweep for Tigres. All right. Next up, we got Monterey versus Portland, and Abram will start us off.
This is a harder one. I think that even though Portland they would beat us, they hinted at some having some trouble in their locker room. Evander was saying that he was not a fan of how his team was playing, which is why he didn't celebrate that goal he scored on us, even though it was a banger. So I think that maybe their current form isn't sustainable. Maybe they've gotten lucky to get this far. I don't say I watch Portland too much, but for me, this one's more of a toss-up, but I might go with Monterey.
Okay, Saz?
I'm going to go Portland. Monterey is in really good form right now, and they're a top team. Portland, though, I think, and this kind of goes back to an earlier question on why the Quakes are struggling so much from one of the fan questions. Portland has a winning culture. And I think when it comes to these tournaments, those clubs with a winning culture who have just seen success, it doesn't matter what their form is, they just find a way to win these games. They could be having a terrible season, but they'll do good in the playoffs or the tournaments. So I'm going to go Portland.
Okay. I'm going to go Monterey because while Portland did punch first against Tigres before losing 2-1, Monterey against Seattle, they were down 2-0, and then they were able to score 4 unanswered. So I think that kind of performance will at least lift them for this first knockout match, and then we'll see what happens after that. So it'll be a 2-1 decision in favor of Monterey. Next up, we have Columbus Crew versus Minnesota United. This is in Columbus. Saz, you'll start us off.
Gotta give a shout out to former Quakes 2 player Max Afstrin. Gotta go with the Crew, save the Crew.
All right. I'm also going to go with the Columbus Crew. Again, off of their most recent performance against Club America, they beat them 4-1. And granted, this wasn't for progression, it was simply to decide who wins the group. But still, like Club America are a really tough team. And for them to beat them by that margin without Lucas Villarreal, who is off to the Saudi Pro League, I think Columbus Crew are going to be a tough out in this tournament as well. And Minnesota United did have an impressive win 4-0 against Puebla, but I think that Crew are just a bit more well-rounded than Minnesota. Abram?
Yeah, I mean, I love that shout out to Max Arfson, with the huge player for the Quakes too when he was here, and I'm really happy to see him doing well over there. Um, for me, I kind of want to pick Minnesota. Unfortunately, I see I've been typing in otherwise on
No,
on
sorry.
this
Yeah,
sheet,
okay. I was
but
getting a little too premature there.
Mhm.
no, I think that they were able to beat America, but I think that I don't know. Zelarayan is a big loss. He was one of the best players in this league, and Minnesota have what's his name?
Reynoso.
What's it? Reynoso, right? And I watched him play against Pachuca. What a player! So I think that all things considered, I think that Reynoso might do enough to pull Minnesota
Okay,
through.
fair
But
enough. So it'll be a 2-1 decision in favor of Columbus, but Minnesota, perhaps, maybe I was sleeping on them a little too much at first. So that'll be an interesting one. Next up, we have Toluca versus Sporting Kansas City. Saz, you were first last time, so I will start things off. And this is not a revenge vote because Sporting Kansas City beat Chivas, but I think that Toluca are the better team, so I'm going to vote for Toluca there. Abram.
uh, I think I was really impressed with SKC when they beat Chivas. I think that they didn't just beat Chivas; they
Yeah,
were
they were
better.
dominant.
And so I think that if SKC can continue to play like that, then a lot of teams are going to struggle against them. So I'm going to have to go with
Okay,
them
Sporting
just because
Kansas
of
City
that.
gets one vote, so Saz, you're the deciding vote.
Yeah, this is low key the battle of the stinkers, but everything I said about Portland and these great teams coming in playoffs, I want everyone to forget that because I just think Sporting Kansas has been struggling these last few seasons. So I'm gonna go to Luca.
All right, Toluca 2-1. All right, some close votes for sure. So far, LAFC and Tigres are the only clean sweeps. We'll see what else happens. Abram, you get to go first. Chicago Fire versus Club America.
You're going to make me say that I think America is going to win this one.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. So, oh,
I
yeah, go
mean,
ahead, Abram.
Chicago Fire is not a good team. Sorry, I'm sorry if we have any fans in Chicago for whatever reason. I don't rate them. I think Shaqiri is a great player. I think that he can do great things, but they're I just don't rate them. And I think America is strong enough to beat
Yeah,
them.
and plus Chicago Fire weren't very convincing in the penalty shootout against Puebla. Uh, Definitely tough time there. Saz.
As much as I'd love to see Shakiri do this or that, my girlfriend is also a Club America fan. So just for the sake of it also being National Girlfriend Day, we're gonna go Club America.
All right, then. This will be another clean sweep. It pains me to say this as well as a Chivas fan, but I think Club America, they have a bit too much quality for Chicago Fire, so that's where it's headed. So next up, Saz, you'll start us off. Cincinnati versus Nashville.
Whew, yeah. I'm gonna have to go Cincinnati with that one.
All right, cool. Shout out to the Soccer Crush podcast. We're able to mix in a lot of our friends here today, but I think Cincinnati, with the season that they're having, Nashville are in the mix in the top of the East as well, but Cincinnati have been the team to beat in the East. So I look to see them continue that as they're also still in the U.S. Open Cup, so they have that experience and success in cup competition this season. Cincinnati is my pick. Abram.
Although I also am voting Cincinnati, we have to watch out for Hani
Yes.
Mukhtar. You have to when Messi came to this league, he was dubbed the Argentinian Mukhtar. So that's how much ability this guy has. So you always have to keep an eye out for that guy.
Indeed.
But I think that
Sounds good. All right, so Cincinnati moving on in our prediction. Philadelphia Union versus DC United. Philadelphia Union. I'm pretty confident in that one. Abram?
I used to, cover DC United a few seasons ago. They have not improved much. They've gotten better definitely, but no, that team should not be even considered. Philadelphia is definitely going to win this.
Saz?
I think DC United could get Wayne Rooney in his prime playing on the field, and they would still be Philadelphia Union going through.
All right, then. So next up, this might be a trickier one. Abram, it's the Hudson River Derby. Red Bulls versus New York City.
But this one's going to be a fun one to watch. If anything, I don't really care who wins, and so that makes it more fun. But I think that New York Red Bulls seem to be in better form. I'm not sure on that.
Mm-hmm.
I watched New York City play against. I don't remember who, but they look to struggle. They don't really have a strong forward up top anymore after Castellanos left, Heber left. So I'm gonna go with Red Bulls.
Saz?
Once again, battle of the stinkers. I'm going to go with City, though. I think they're dealing with a little bit less injuries and a little bit less of management load problems.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go City.
Yeah, this is going to be a close one. Home field advantage doesn't really mean too much because City fans could take over if they wanted to. Depends on how that works out with New York traffic, New Jersey traffic. But I'm going to lean New York Red Bulls. It's just going to be very close, probably just on penalties. And if it does come down to penalties, I trust Carlos Cornell a little bit better. So
I'll also say Red Bull's form has been good as of late.
Yeah. So this is going to be a close one, but the pick is Red Bulls. But next up, we have Pumas versus Querétaro. So the only Liga MX full showdown in this round. Says you go first.
I really don't know either. These teams, if I'm being completely honest, so I'm going to go Pumas.
All right. Well, you can feel a little bit more confident now because Pumas is also my choice. Pumas destroyed DC United, whereas Querétaro were no match for Philadelphia Union. They were able to squeak past Tijuana, so Pumas gets my vote. Abram?
Yeah, Pumas. Not much to say. Querétaro is not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pumas.
Fun fact, though, Querétaro was the Liga MX club that Ronaldinho chose to play at for some reason. Of all the options he
I
had.
remember that on FIFA like 14 or 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing they're known for,
Right.
else.
Definitely.
I literally, when you said that to me, I'm like, okay, which team would I rather play as in FIFA back in the day? that was my reason.
All right. So next up, we have Club Atlas versus New England Revolution. This is going to be very close. I could be petty, but since I was fair to America, who are the bigger rivals in Atlas, I got to be fair to Atlas as well. New England Revolution are in decent form, but I think that Atlas, with their recent success in the Liguilla a few seasons ago, they're going to be strong in this knockout format. I'm going to vote for Atlas. Abram?
I'm going to go with New England Revolution. I think that they have the roster to compete here. I think Carlos Hill is a very good player. I think that they have great fullbacks in Brandon Bai and was it Dwan Jones on the other side? And I think that with that pace, Atlas might struggle to keep up. I just think that New England has the roster to compete.
Yeah, they also have an exceptional goalkeeper as well, so that could be a factor. Saz, the deciding vote?
No, I'm going to agree with your last point. Goalkeeper team to beat right now. I think it's not always that first seed you got to watch out for. It's those second, 3, 4, those guys who are really top but aren't quite there yet. So I'm also going New England.
All right, that's the first one that I was outvoted in, but I don't hate the result. I think New England Revolution will give Atlas a game, and I won't be shocked if they win. So we got 4 matchups left. Abram, you have Mazatlan versus Dallas to kick things off.
I'm gonna go with Dallas. I think that maybe the Pirate of the Caribbean can come in handy today. Um, that Mazatlan are dubbed one of the worst teams in Liga MX right now. So I think that Dallas has a pretty okay team, and I think that they can pull it out.
Saz.
I just want to say prayers to them for all having to play in Dallas in that August heat. But I'm going to go with Dallas.
We'll make it unanimous for Dallas, and plus the added factor that Mazatlan knocked out Austin, so this would be another middle finger Dallas fans could give to Austin. It's like, hey, we did what you couldn't do, so that'll be motivation as well. So Dallas with the unanimous choice there, and I have a feeling that because of a certain someone, this is going to be an easy decision. Says Inter Miami versus Orlando City.
Sorry, you want me to go first on this one?
Yeah, you're going first.
Okay, yes. Sorry, yeah, my the internet froze halfway through. I'm actually gonna go Orlando. Is obviously as
Oh,
great as Messi. Busquets has been phenomenal, and obviously Messi's Messi. But good lord, the rest of the players on that team.
hey, Robert
Oh my
Taylor's
god,
good.
yeah, it was still hard to watch that
Okay.
back line. Oh my god, I think if Orlando can just get 7 of their players to connect a pass, they got the advantage.
Right, because on paper, the supporting cast for Inter Miami shouldn't be this bad. Because Drake Callender, U.S. men's national team player, DeAndre Yedlin still was recently with the U.S. men's national team, and Kamal Miller starts for Canada, but yet their defense is still making things really tough. I still have to go with Inter Miami because I just can't imagine Messi and Busquets are one and done in the knockout rounds. But we'll see. Abram.
I think it is complicated. I think Saz does have a point. And Orlando have the advantage of having watched this team and Messi and Busquets play, and they know not to do what Atlanta did, which was let them have the ball and also sit with a high line so that anyone can run behind whenever they feel like it. Um, I think if Orlando play a decent game, then they're going to be hard to beat for even if Messi's on the field, he's gonna cause problems for sure. But Atlanta just didn't defend. If you watch that
Yeah.
game, so I think this could be tough. But I want Inter Miami to win, so I'm gonna go like that.
Okay, so in a closer vote than expected, Inter Miami sneaks through, but Saz, you raised some great points about Orlando, so fair enough. Next up, our second to last matchup, Charlotte versus Cruz Azul, and again, this is the only game where it's played at a true neutral venue because they had to play this game in Dallas due to Bank of America being unavailable. But I think that Cruz Azul are the better team. They get my vote over Charlotte. Abram?
Yeah, I think Charlotte is kind of like Chicago
Mm-hmm.
Fire are very struggling in the MLS, and Cruz Azul is a pretty good team. I think that it's pretty cut and dry, and Charlotte is going to struggle in this game.
Saz?
Yeah, I think Cruz Azul's been struggling, but even in that game versus Inter Miami, I really think Miami's keeper kept them in that game. So I'm going to also go with Cruz Azul, even though they've been struggling as of late.
All right. Yeah, they have the talent. They just haven't been playing up to it. But I think that they'll be happy to have been drawn with Charlotte. And lastly, Abram, Pachuca versus Houston Dynamo.
It's tough. I think that these are more evenly matched teams, in my opinion, at least. I can't say I follow Pachuca too much. I think that since I don't really have much to break the tie in my mind, I'm gonna go with Hector Herrera and say that they're gonna win because of him somehow.
Saz. Houston Dynamo or Pachuca?
Yeah, sorry. Sadly, the internet is struggling as of right now.
Okay, so I'll go ahead
So
and give my vote. This will effectively decide it. I think Houston Dynamo, they're playing phenomenally well. They'll be at home where they've been really tough to beat this season. Quakes, unfortunately, know that very well. And I think that Pachuca, they're a good team. They're not a top tier Liga MX team. So I think this will be a good test and one that Houston Dynamo can pass. So Houston Dynamo gets my vote. Saz, if you're uh, with us, you want to give your vote, or I guess not. So we'll take it from here then.
so he did say in the chat that he was going for
Okay, so
Houston.
it's unanimous for Houston. All right, so just to recap, I won't say the vote totals, but I'll just recap our winners real quick. LAFC, Club Leon, Tigres, Monterrey, Columbus Crew, Toluca, Club America, Cincinnati, Philadelphia Union, New York Red Bulls, Pumas, New England Revolution, Dallas, Inter Miami, Cruz Azul, and Houston Dynamo. So this will be probably a little bit trickier for us with two people, but just for fun. Saz is back. We got our bonus round. So we know four of the matchups for the World Cup round of 16, and we have a pretty good idea what the fifth one involving the USA is going to be. So real quickly, I'll start things off. Switzerland versus Spain. It's going to be pain for Switzerland. I'm thinking Spain go through. Saz?
I agree, Espana.
And I'll look in the chat. Oh, okay. Abram?
Yep,
All right, Spain unanimous going through. Japan versus Norway. Abram, you can go first.
Japan are a very strong team. I think that some people have them as one of the favorites in the tournament. So I'll go with Japan.
I'm also going Japan, yeah.
And that makes it 3. Japan have just been incredibly great finishers in this tournament. If you give them any sort of space, any opportunity, they're going to take it and punish you for it. Next up, we got the hosts Australia versus Denmark. Saz, you start us off.
I'm hoping for some host magic, but I'm going to go Australia.
Okay, Saz votes for Australia. I'm going to go for Denmark because I think that Australia, they've been a little inconsistent. They were able to beat Canada convincingly, but they also lost to Nigeria. So I think that Denmark, they were able to take care of business against China and Haiti. They only lost narrowly to England. It could go either way. So Australia will need that home advantage to make a difference, but I could see Denmark winning this. Abram?
Yeah, Denmark, I think, is an underrated team. I think that they're very strong. I would go with Denmark.
Okay, so Denmark 2-1. And then the last confirmed knockout match, England versus Nigeria. Nigeria have done very well, and I think that they'll give England a good chance. But England are the defending Euro champions. I think England will win this. Abram?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the more fun ones to watch, other than the USA game. But I think that England has too much quality, and Nigeria are going to struggle.
Before we get into our last one, most likely going to be Sweden versus USA. Abram, your thoughts on the performance that the U.S. women's national team put against Portugal?
I didn't get to watch. I went to sleep at 10
Wow,
p.m.
That's such a responsible adult thing to do.
7:30 in the morning, and I'm sick. I was having a hard time. Went to bed, but I've heard a lot of criticism, and I think that I think a lot of it is unwarranted. I think that they haven't played as well as we think they should, which is given, and I think that they deserve to enjoy themselves at the World Cup.
They've won it twice in a row.
I don't, because Carly Lode came out and was criticizing the demeanor that they had after the game. And for me, if I'm at the World Cup, I've never been at the World Cup. I would just be happy to be there. They moved on to the next round. They moved on to the knockout round. They haven't lost the World Cup yet. I think it's too harsh, and I think that these women come under enough scrutiny as it is. We don't have to add more, especially not Carly Lloyd, one of their former teammates. I think that's too much, and I think it's unwarranted.
Right. And Alexi Lawless is not blameless either. The quote that sticks out for me, and I'm just happy I was listening to Telemundo and not watching that Fox broadcast, but he said Crystal Dunn was playing as if she never played soccer before, which is just plain out disrespectful for someone that, if they had a third captain's armband behind Morgan and Horan, Crystal Dunn would have gotten that. And I don't think Alexi Lalas would ever say that about a U.S. men's national team player. So definitely it was just a poor taste in commentary from Alexi Lalas. But honestly, it doesn't surprise me coming from him. Saz, do you have any thoughts on the game? Lalas is an idiot. Agreed. Saz still having some difficulties, so he's communicating with the chat.
That is not able to speak at the minute.
Yeah, I can hear you, Saz. Yeah. It looks like internet's still cutting in and out. But if you send in a comment in the chat, I'll just read it off. But I'll give my thoughts on the game. I admit I was really disappointed with the performance, and I think everyone agrees. I think the USA will agree that they themselves didn't play as well as they did. And Saz just simply says, my pronouns are U, S, and A. USA wins. And yeah, the audio is really delayed, unfortunately. But regarding the game against Portugal, gotta give Portugal credit. They were able to play phenomenally well in disrupting the USA's attack, but the USA didn't counter attack. They didn't counter playing against Portugal's strategy. If they weren't just winning the battles physically or just getting that initial ball and then running through their opponents, it didn't seem like they had a lot of creativity in the midfield. So that was really, disappointing to see that they just looked bereft of ideas. But the most disappointing thing besides the players is the coaching. Vlatko, he just doesn't look like he's got a clue sometimes. Regarding the substitutes, regarding who's he subbing in, regarding what time he's doing, and the fact that he doesn't seem to trust an important core of the squad. He's keeping it really close to the starting 11. The fact that he made 2 changes to the starting 11 is a shock. Rose Lavelle was the one change I think was deserved, but it was especially shocking to see Lynn Williams start ahead of Trinity Rodman, who was one of the better performers and scored that brace against Wales in San Jose. So ultimately, there's some justifiable disappointment in the ranks. I'm not very confident in this team at the moment, which is why my vote is going towards Sweden. And unfortunately, Saz's internet is out, so he won't be joining us for the remainder of this podcast. We're about wrapping up anyway. But I think that's just the reality of the situation. The USA, they're a good team, and maybe they can, like when the Warriors get to the playoffs, they can flip a switch and start to play better than they did in the regular season group stage. I know it's a shaky analogy, but ultimately now they're going to have to do it the hard way. Sweden's going to be stage 1 of a gauntlet if they go further, but I think Sweden are going to be really tough to beat, and I have Sweden winning it. Abram.
I don't have USA going out just yet. I do think that Sweden is a tough test. I don't think it's going to be easy, and Sweden could win. It's not. It's just going to go one way. But I think that like Saz was saying about Portland, USA has a winning mentality. They have a winning history. And I think that they want this third World Cup. I don't think that they're taking this lightly. And I think that they know that they haven't played as well as they should have. And I think that I trust them to, make adjustments accordingly. I think we have the roster to win this game. It's not going to be easy, but I think that the USA can pull it out.
Yeah. Again, I want to have faith in the USA. It's just really tough to three-peat. That's another factor. I'll give another example. The Tampa Bay Lightning in the NHL, they've been dominant, and they looked like they were favorites to three-peat for the Stanley Cup, and that didn't happen. So ultimately, if the USA do go out in the round 16, it is objectively a failure because, they've done so well in the past World Cups and they've always made at least the semifinals. So in that sense, yes, that would be a failure. However, there's still room for context that has to be considered. They had a tough opponent in the Netherlands that they drew, and there's no shame in drawing against the Netherlands. And then, unfortunately, what happened with Portugal happened. And then, Sweden's a tough opponent. And looking at the top 16 teams, there's not going to be that many layups as there might have been in World Cups past. There was one World Cup where the USA had Colombia in the round 16 and China in the quarterfinals. And this isn't the same kind of China that faced USA in the Brandy Chastain 1999 World Cup final. So it's going to be a tougher path for everyone involved. I think England is going to have to fight hard against Nigeria. And Australia is going to have a battle in their hands against Denmark. And we had Denmark winning it. So ultimately, whatever happens, it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be critical, constructive criticism. But I do feel like, especially in this space where, women's soccer is not given a lot of the same privileges as men's soccer or men's sports in general, that we do have to keep in mind that there are some voices out there that are taking things a little bit too harshly. And it's important that we, keep things fair. That's all I have to say there. But we had a really good time. We talked about the Quakes. We'll figure out a plan regarding San Jose Earthquakes content between now and August 20th. We'll definitely do a recap of the Vancouver Whitecaps game on August 20th or a few days after that. But in the meantime, we're going to figure out a plan. We'll post on Twitter and Discord what you, the viewers, the listeners, want to hear from us, what kind of content you'd like. It might not be as frequent as while the Quakes are playing week in, week out, but we'll definitely try to have at least one podcast between now and August 20th. And maybe it's a Leagues Cup recap. We'll see what happens. But Abram, any final thoughts before we call it a day?
I think that we need this time off. I think it's a good time for a break. We haven't been playing. We haven't been getting the results we want, and so it's a good time for a reset. I think, especially for me, I'm very sick. I've been sick for a while. I was in Mexico, the week before that, so I need time off. Definitely,
understandable.
Yeah, but I'm excited to do something in between. Maybe Twitter Spaces could come back. I miss those very much.
You mean X Spaces?
Maybe.
Sorry? I don't think Twitter Spaces exists anymore. X Spaces is the new thing now, according to Elon Musk.
I'm fine with doing X Spaces, I guess. Or if Threads similar, that would be fun.
Yeah. Don't worry. Aside from that joke, I'm still calling it Twitter. I'm still calling it retweeting. It's just so ridiculous, those changes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some. I might buy some more cards. I just haven't because I was on vacation and I wasn't getting paid during that time. So it's really a financial thing. We don't, get money to us. We're just like, I've been doing the card thing on my own, like, budget. So, but I mean, I really like doing it. You guys really seem to enjoy watching. So, yeah, it's my favorite part of being a part of Tectonic Takes.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do, Abram, regarding to uploading podcasts and doing the cards and other factors, as well as covering Quakes too. And I'm really happy to continue covering the Quakes as well. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how these last few months of Major League Soccer goes. And of course, we have the rest of the Leagues Cup, the Women's World Cup, and other competitions to look forward to as well. In the meantime, go Quakes.